Are going to get to our second guest today, a longtime friend of mine. I'm so glad to have on the show. It's probably going to sound like we've been talking on the phone, catching up, which will be a great thing, a fun thing to talk about. But welcome to the show, Jennifer Armand. Jennifer is the executive director of the Bayou Community Foundation, but she is a longtime friend of mine. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Well, thank you, Simone. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a delight to be with you. I'm so excited to chat with you over the next few
So we just
minutes.
had a little offline conversation that Jennifer was also part of Dr. Christine Strickland's podcast, as was our first guest, Bren Haas. And so this is not that. I love Dr. Strickland and this is amazing. But yeah, she hit me with some real zingers on the show. Like what was my favorite song from a movie and things like that. None of that, Jen. We
Right.
yeah.
Oh,
I will ask you a fun question, but I promise you, I know you, and I think that's one that you can handle. Jennifer is the executive director of the Bayou Community Foundation. It's the only public community foundation specifically and solely serving Lafourche Parish, Terrebonne Parish, and Grand Isle. In the aftermath of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, and after the 2010 oil spill, leaders in the Bayou region recognized the need for a community foundation to strengthen human services, education, workforce development, and coastal preservation efforts in our area, as well as to serve as a philanthropic engine for national and international assistance in the event of a future emergency or disaster. So that work has started since Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, but we also want to talk to Jen today about what happened with Hurricane Ida just 4 years ago in the Bayou community. The Bayou Community Foundation has worked swiftly and strategically to help local residents and nonprofits recover from that category 4, some say 5, storms devastation to rebuild lives and communities. Jen, that's all about BCF. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you have this history of working in the Bayou region even before BCF?
yeah. So thank you, Simone. Actually, I'm not a native of the Bayou region. I was actually born in Opelika, Alabama, right outside the gates of Auburn University.
That'll come up later.
But
I promise. It'll come up.
my parents moved back home to Louisiana shortly after I was born, and I grew up in Lafayette and Carencro in beautiful Acadiana. And then my husband's work took us here to Terrebonne Parish back in 1997, shortly after our daughter was born. And so I've been living and working, raising a family, and maintaining my career here in beautiful Houma and Terrebonne Parish since then. So while I'm not a native of our area, I consider myself a very passionate advocate for this beautiful coastal region.
Absolutely. I probably never realized that you were maybe born in Alabama. I just always thought about you as a Southwest girl from Southwest Louisiana and brought that to us in the Bayou region. But Jen, one of the ways that we got to know each other so well is that you helped me out at Restore Retreat. You helped out the LA1 Coalition. You were part of the Bayou Industrial Group. So you always kind of had your hands in some civic causes, always in the Bayou region.
I was very fortunate, Simone, to be able to work with you at Restore Retreat and Lori LeBlanc at Restore Retreat and Henri and Lori with MAC, Morgan's Action Coalition, and LA1 Coalition, and so many other local advocacy groups, consulting on communications and public relations, et cetera. And it was from that work that I first found out about Bayou Community Foundation being formed. And I know you were very active in that development of that organization, serving as a help and consultant yourself to our founders. And it was through my work that I learned about this effort and talked to some of the founders about it and learned about it and said, hey, I might be interested in working with you all, and was lucky enough to be appointed executive director.
So Jen, I want to talk about that a little bit because really one things that we're talking about these milestone anniversaries, and that was a little bit in the BCF bio, is that we had hurricanes Katrina and Rita. Obviously, Rita hit the other side of the state, but really had a tremendous impact in Terrebonne Parish just a month after Hurricane Katrina hit. And then that kind of led to this idea that they needed a vehicle, right? In the Bayou region, if assistance were to come or if folks wanted to help, how could they do that? But that's really a little bit part of the origin story.
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned, Katrina and Rita, we all know we marked the 20th anniversary of Katrina last Friday, and the anniversary for Hurricane Rita will be coming up this month in just a few weeks. And those two storms, Rita in particular, while it did not make landfall here in Terrebonne and Lafourche, the storm surge was so devastating from a storm that landed over 100 miles away near the Louisiana Texas border to have tragic storm surge flooded 10,000 homes in Terrebonne Parish alone, caused the breakage of a levee in Chauvin. It was truly a wake up call to many people here about the need for hurricane protection in our region. We are thankful now we have Marganza to the Gulf that is under construction and many segments completed, but also a call for the need for reinforcing our natural defense. And I think we have seen as a state more attention to that since Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. For BCF, our founders saw these storms as an alarm or a need for, as you said, a philanthropic engine to address some of the human needs that our region has, not only after disaster in gray skies, but under blue skies as well. And it was after the 2010 Gulf oil spill that things really started moving to form BCF.
Yeah, Jen, I mean, that's something that we've talked about in past episodes, certainly before, is this need to protect the protection, right? These multiple lines of defenses and that idea. But I love what you're saying about taking care of the people in that plan always, right? And I think that's been so important to BCF's early days and then especially kind of in the second chapter that it had. But let's talk about a little bit more about those. Kind of tell us about getting Bayou Community Foundation starting, and what are some of the things in those early years that maybe surprised you the most or that you're most proud about? So let's talk about, BCF chapter 1, if you will.
Yes, chapter one. Well, I can say that BCF was formed in the fall of 2012. And in December of that year, we held the first ever BCF community needs assessment. We brought together representatives from government, education, law enforcement, hospitals, nonprofits in a room and talked about the needs of our area. And what was most surprising that night is that from table to table, the number one unmet need was mental health.
Mm,
This was such a surprise to me at first. It was an issue that I had not thought about. And many of us, many of the founders also had not thought of as well, but it came from all of these different corridors of our community. The schools talking about the mental health impact on children and parents and what they were seeing in the classroom, and of course the hospitals and law enforcement. And it went throughout. So at that point, BCF determined that that was going to be one of our focuses. And so for the next several years, through our annual nonprofit grants program, mental health was one of the issues that we addressed through some of our grant supporting services in our community, as well as education, as you mentioned earlier, education, workforce development issues, other critical needs in our community that nonprofits were addressing. And through the years, that nonprofit grants program has grown to over $3.2 million awarded since 2013. And we just had our most recent grant ceremony for 2025 2 weeks ago. And we awarded $355,000 in grants to 32 local organizations. Unsurprisingly, after Hurricane Ida and COVID, we conducted a needs assessment in 2023, and behavioral health care, once again, access to that care continues to be a huge need, and BCF continues to make that one of our priorities.
yeah, so you keep taking the pulse of the community, finding out what they need, etc. Jen, sometimes I know mental health is a lot of things. I'm sure you've grown to learn even more about that, but sometimes it can be stressful living here, right? Just even environmental conditions, it's definitely stressful. These constant storms or the extreme storms or like One thing that we talk about sometimes is incomplete recovery, how long it's taking to kind of pull yourself back up each time. And sometimes that happens on an individual level, and sometimes that kind of happens as a whole too. So that's really, really important work to keep checking, making sure that you're doing the right thing there. So I wanna focus on about that Ida recovery too, because while we're talking of this is a big anniversary year because of the 2010 Deepwater Horizon, but because of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, but not lost is the fact that Hurricane Ida hit 4 years ago, same day as Katrina, I think, right?
Yeah.
And came through Port Fourchon and definitely impacted the Bayou region. So let's talk about the Bayou Community Foundation work that kinda changed even a little bit after Ida.
Yeah. Well, BCF, as we talked about earlier, was formed to build our community's capacity in blue skies and in gray. And I tell you what, that philanthropic engine really got to work after Hurricane Ida. Just as Katrina was such a catastrophic event for the New Orleans area and our neighbors in Mississippi, Ida was our storm. And we saw, you know, tens of thousands of residents with damaged homes, thousands living in tents and cars for weeks after the storm, very unstable, unsafe living conditions. BCF immediately after the storm, thanks to the generosity of our donors, was able to, number one, within a week, we held massive gasoline distributions in Lafourche and Terrebonne. And during that time, we saw so many people with just anything left they had, whatever they owned, just in their car. And that's all they had. And it struck us that if we were going to have recovery in this area, we had to focus, number one, on housing, and second of all, on the people who have no other means to recover, that they would need help the most, particularly those in our vulnerable bayou communities. So following that gasoline distribution, we also distributed many, many grants worth, $4 million dollars to nonprofits who are doing critical work on the ground. And then we started looking at long-term recovery and that housing piece. And thanks to the wonderful volunteers from our Mennonite and Amish friends from MDS Storm Aid, they came down to Dulac in November, right after the storm, and were looking to see if this was a place they could help. Well, we immediately learned about their work, met them, and said, this is an opportunity we cannot pass up. Volunteers want to come here to fix people's homes, rebuild
Like
homes. We've got to
service,
help.
right? Just straight service from somewhere else.
Yeah. So BCF made $1 million commitment at that point, um, to buy building supplies for their effort. They set up camp in Dulac. And that first season now has turned into what will be a 5-season project, 5-year project starting this coming December, working with Mennonite and Amish volunteers. We have invested to date $8 million dollars on repairing and rebuilding homes in our area for under-resourced residents who have nowhere else to turn. The most phenomenal part about it, Simone, is that we have been able to assist over 550
Oh, wow.
households.
I was gonna ask you what the number was, and I would have not even thought that many. Oh gosh,
Yeah,
Jen.
550. We have built 54 storm fortified homes in Lafourche, Terrebonne, and Grand Isle. We've had 10 full house restorations. These were homes where everything needed to be
Oh,
gutted.
wow.
So all that existed was their exterior walls and their foundation, and our volunteers were able to completely rebuild that house. We've also done, over 450 or whatever repairs, everything
Like,
from
just
mud,
need help pulling it
age.
all together and getting it more
Yes.
complete.
And like I said, we have our volunteers coming back. In fact, I was with them this morning. They were looking at a few sites of clients that we have for repairs and new builds this season. Starting in January, we'll be working in Homa, Raceland, Thibodeau, and Northern Terrebonne. So addressing other parts of the parish this time. It's been truly the most rewarding, impactful program I've ever been involved with in my life. What I have learned as just a nonprofit leader, as a community resident, but most importantly, just as a human with a
Yeah,
heart,
yeah, yeah.
has just been tremendous, and I'm so fortunate to be able. That's
And to think, Jen, that Wendell Curall used to always say, like, "You've been through one storm, you've been through one storm," like, meaning they're all different, right? And that in this case, maybe they didn't flood or some parts, that was different and the wind damage was bad and this or that, or like what you don't want is those folks to go through another storm season and have that incomplete recovery. And so that's really just important to kind of like I don't wanna say moving on, but it is, right? Because sometimes it is hard to put it all together to be able to do that, and so, um, is there something that you see could be different for the future, or do you see this kind of you said it was a five-year project, but, like, you know, this is not how you started BCF, like, do you see something on the horizon or, like, something a future challenge well, I hate to ask you for a future challenge, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, what do you think could be next, or how does BCF continue to evolve to meet the community's needs?
it. Yeah, so many thoughts come to mind. First, I can say that the reason this project has gone from 1 year commitment to now 5 years happening is because as our coordinator volunteer says, because we didn't know what we didn't know. So we got into doing something we didn't know. We just said people need help and we did it. And through every year, every challenge we have faced, we have been flexible and nimble. We've adjusted to the challenges and to the opportunities that have been put in front of us. And I think that has been key to the achievement of the help that we've been able to provide. What we are seeing now, the more and more we get into this work, is just the need for safe and secure housing for so many people. Obviously, the storm laid much of that bare, and the need continues, which is why our work continues in this area. But beyond the storm, there's just really a need for just safe, secure housing for so many other residents in our community who are living in situations that many of us would never be able to do ourselves, probably, but could never imagine.
Yeah, and you see that reflected. I know you mentioned earlier, like y'all had another round of grant giving, and you can see that reflected in the organizations that y'all give to. I know food insecurity, you can see that. You can see that throughout
Yes,
the list
absolutely.
that's really important in addition to continuing mental health and providing services there too. So I think that's really important. I want to talk about this a little bit, Jen, because mentioning these different organizations that y'all give to, that's something that BCF really believes in. And that's maybe something that's not always well understood outside of our community is that you're trying to not just expand capacity of these organizations already doing the work, but you're also trying to like grow capacity and build capacity and strengthen that. So y'all really just empower organizations, right? Y'all leverage opportunities and just shift that power to them. Is that fair to say of PCF?
Yes, yes. In fact, building the capacity of our local nonprofits is one of our focus areas. It's part of our mission. And we do that in addition to the grants that, as you said, support delivery of specific critical programs. We also provide many learning opportunities throughout the year. In fact, right now we're in the midst of a 4 session cohort called Clicks for a Cause. And we were with representatives in this 4 session workshop, learning all about digital communications, strengthening their website and their social media presence and their newsletters. And it has been phenomenal. We're really excited about that. We also, on October 9th, will have our annual Bayou Region Nonprofit Conference. We just love this event. We started, I think, in 2018, I believe, with this annual conference at Fletcher Technical Community College. It's our home away from home for all.
It's a good home away from home.
And we usually have between 100 and 150 local nonprofit representatives attend for a day of learning and networking. Wonderful. I would invite anybody. You don't have to be in the Bayou region to come to our conference. We'd love to have people from outside of our region attend. And it's October 9th, and anybody can find out more information on our website, bayouconference.org.
And you have the
Our
wonderful Julie Laperouse coming in, right?
Yeah, Julie Laperouse is our opening keynote speaker, and we're so excited. We've been wanting to have her for a while, and this year the dates worked out. And she's going to be talking about nonprofit leaders should themselves, because Simone, that we often hold blame or make ourselves too responsible sometimes for things that are out of our control, and we need to just remember to take it easy on ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, Jen, I mean, I don't know if you think about this a lot, but like that is a way to help complete, like you were talking about all the programs and services BCF has, so like the kind of complete services, but you're thinking about that on the individual level as well, including supporting the nonprofits doing all this work. So I love that y'all are so intentional on the individual level and then carry it through to your programs too. You mentioned it earlier, but give us all the details. What did you just say? Clicks for a cause? Like give us all the socials. Let us know where we can
Yeah, well,
find all the information out.
right. Well, Clicks for a Cause is already underway. So anybody can check out our social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to see reports on that. And then our conference, bayouconference.org, is our official registration site. Our website has this and all the information about our organization, bayoucf.org, as well as information about our Rebuild the Bayou program, which is the housing recovery program we have talked about. And you'll find other news and information about our board and et cetera on the website.
I love some of your board members there from day one, right? Y'all have gotten new recruits, and so that's so amazing. Okay, Jen, we're gonna wrap this up, but you don't get away without the fun question. You've alluded several times Auburn, LSU, Bren Haas, who was the previous guest, was one of those like double Tiger grads, right? And so I know you like football, but so tell us your predictions for either Tiger season. Brent was pretty bold in his decisions, but you can be softer or not about it. So tell us about your predictions for the season and tell us your favorite place to watch a football game.
Okay. Well, I can say, I'll be honest, that I was picking LSU to, I think, drop 3 this season, but after their win against Clemson, I'm thinking a little more optimistic.
Good.
Was lost this weekend. That makes things look better too for us. So it's looking good. I'll just say one loss. Let me say.
Brent got all bold and he was like, I think LSU is going to play Clemson again in the national championship. I was like, whoa, buddy, I just asked you a fun question.
Didn't want to go that far. I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, you don't have to go so far. It's just so funny the commonality between you. Like I was teasing about being on Christine's show and then doing the Auburn LSU connection between you two. So two of my favorite people that I've had an opportunity to spend a large part of my professional career working alongside. So Jen, I cannot say how grateful I am for your leadership, Bayou Community Foundation, and all the different things that you touched and how you brought really intention to that and making sure that people were clearly communicated to and that they understood the issues no matter how hard they were, but then they always saw the opportunities for them to address them. So just thank you for that. Thank you for being on the show. It's been a great way to catch up. That'll be it for today's Delta Dispatches episode. A big thank you again to Jennifer and Bren Haas for being back on the show in the Bayou region. You can learn more about the Bayou Community Foundation by visiting bayoucf.org and bitnep at btnep.org. You can find this episode, all the past episodes at deltadispatches.org and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening once again. After a while, Crocodile.